So summarizing chapter 1. So we start out with the chapter talking about what is language learning. So language learning is pretty self-explanatory. It's learning a language throughout your lifetime. All normally developed children can learn languages innately. It's a lot like walking. In the 60s, Chomsky proposed that children are genetically equipped to learn languages. He was one of the fathers of modern linguistics. So now research has shown, though, that there's actually a gene called FOXP2 that has been linked to development of language. And they learned this by studying this family for 3 generations who had severe speech and language learning disorders. So who are linguistics? Linguists are individuals who approach the study of language in a scientific way. They can do this in many different forms. They could be focused on phonetics, syntax, sociolinguistics, so they focus on culture and society, and it's just any direction you want to take it with language. All of them agree that all spoken languages change over time. All spoken languages are equal in terms of linguistic potential. Grammaticality and communicative effectiveness are distinct and independent issues. Written language and spoken language are historically, structurally, and functionally fundamentally different creatures. Variation is intrinsic to all spoken language at every level, and much of that variation serves as like an emblematic purpose. Okay, so linguists really try to break up assumptions that society has about language. For example, they think of language change as decay, but it's really not. So because every language changes, it doesn't mean they're necessarily decaying or destroying themselves. The only languages that no longer change are dead languages. So there's also an assumption that some languages are better than others, but languages develop based on the vocabulary needs of the speakers. You can't say that someone who speaks Swahili is better than someone who speaks Tagalog, because they both have different needs out of their vocabulary, so you can't say one is better than the other because they both serve different functions. And you can't always assume that English is the best language, because that ignores deficiencies in the language. English is nowhere near perfect. We lack informal use, and there are other languages where subjects are way more clear. It's just, you can't just say we're the best if we're the most popular. So this goes into this subject of what is grammar. Linguists describe grammar as a sentence is grammatical if it follows the rules that speakers have developed. So they go around and ask natives if they would accept a sentence. So laypersons will see if a sentence is socially acceptable. So they will go and ask if it follows certain social conventions. So given the example, the house needs painted. If you ask a linguist, this is a non-grammatical sentence, but if you ask a layperson, it is grammatical because it is accepted in casual speech. So language can either be spoken or written. Spoken is innate and universal. It's a lot like learning how to walk. You don't really need to be told how to do it. You just start doing it, and everybody can acquire it. There's no need for specific trainings. It's used in a bunch of social activities, usually face-to-face talking. It can be planned or spontaneous, but it disappears as soon as you say it. So even though this video is being recorded and it'll be saved, if I was just saying this aloud to myself, no one would know and it would disappear. Variation, so spoken languages do have variation. People across the United States say things differently. Variation is intrinsic to all spoken languages. This comes from multiple different sources. 3 are language has internal pressures. External influences on language also contribute to the variation, and variation arising from language as a creative vehicle of expression. Okay, and then lastly, written language. It was invented about 5,000 years ago in response to demands arising from social, technological, and economic change. It is more efficient to create things in one way for everybody to understand, so you're not having to print out multiple copies. Like if they had to do the Bible in every single dialect, there'd be no more money. So written language was developed to store information, so the strict rules then make it efficient. It requires a long time of specific training, and it is planned, which makes it permanent. And it can be considered more prestigious. That's just because it's a much lengthier process to follow those strict rules. And then if it's worth being written down, those topics tend to be more important. So again, this was chapter 1 for assignment 2, and this was Hannah Springer.